Hello and welcome back to the Viaplay studio here at Nordic Business Forum in Helsinki. My name's Maddie Savage and I just have to say the atmosphere here is pretty electric right now. We've got Randi Zuckerberg with us for our first of this round of interviews. We'll hear from you in just a moment.
Thank you.
Recapping on some of the main news that's just come from the main stage, announcing some of the speakers for next year already, including the actor and politician George Clooney. And still today to come on the main stage. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger that's been announced for next year. We've still got George Clooney, causing everyone to be something of a fluster. And research professor Brené Brown is going to be wrapping up the day. But here on the Viaplay studio, we've got three more interviews. One is Randi Zuckerberg, who's going to be telling us about her life at Zuckerberg Media. And we're also going to be speaking to Mikko Kuitunen, the founder and CEO of Vincit, and Anssi Rantanen, who is the winner of this year's Nordic Business Forum's speaker contest. He got a great reception yesterday, so it's going to be really exciting to hear from him again today. So just around 3:15 in the afternoon here in Helsinki, and hello to all of you watching on the live stream, whether you're at work or on your way home on your smartphone. It's great to have you with us, as well, of course, our fantastic audience here. So, Randi, you were on the main stage. Hopefully, a lot of people got the chance to catch you, but for those who didn't, well, they missed a song, your fantastic tech version of one of the Little Mermaid hits.
Thank you. Doesn't everyone end a business keynote by singing Disney?
I wish they did, but sadly not. But what were the three main key takeaways aside from that?
Gosh, well, I think, I really wanted people to walk away thinking about the value of taking big risks and thinking like an entrepreneur, no matter, even if you're inside a big company or where you work. I wanted especially the women in the audience to feel seen as working mothers and, often maybe the only woman in a room who's fighting an uphill battle to be seen and recognized. I wanted people to maybe think a little bit about the relationship of technology in our own lives, both for good and for what's holding us back.
Yeah, it was a very nuanced, balanced perspective on that, which is it's refreshing coming from someone that has worked for a huge tech giant in the past. I want to talk to you a bit about marketing, one of your passions and specialisms. So what do you see as the next big marketing trends for us to look forward to or be afraid of?
I think, well, actually, one of the things that is most interesting to me right now is that I'm seeing the rise of long-form content. I know for the past few years, when we go to events like this, everyone says, keep your content shorter and shorter and shorter. People have short attention spans, but that's actually the opposite of what I'm seeing right now. I'm seeing a real hunger for long, deep, thoughtful content, to the point that now most podcasts are over an hour long. Most shows that you would stream are multiple hours of content. And there is an appetite. If you are an expert in something and you can produce good content, you don't have to keep it short.
Yeah, it's a really interesting shift. It's been happening in journalism as well.
Sure.
When I first moved to the Nordics 5 years ago, it was all about snackable content and those lists. And now people want more in-depth analysis of what's going on here in this region.
That's right. So you can use social to kind of have a headline that catches people in. But then when they click on it, they want a thoughtful expert.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we've been seeing as well. But in terms of the future of social media then, what are your thoughts on social media?
Yes, I think audio content on social media is one of the biggest trends. I talked about it a little bit in my keynote, but I think we're really at this kind of golden age of podcasting and audio content inside social media and inside other technology. To the point that I think this is the year, if you're thinking about launching a podcast or a show, this is the year to do it.
That's really interesting because there's so many podcasts out there and a lot of people try and fail to get the numbers.
Yes.
So why do you think it's still worth trying to push through that very heavily populated arena?
Because I think most people give up after about 3 or 4 episodes. They tried and they give up. So while there are millions of people who have tried, there's really only a few 100,000 podcasts that people are regularly committing to. And it takes time to build an audience.
Yeah.
You're not going to have an audience in 4 episodes. It takes time to build your credibility and expertise, but it's a very rewarding medium for those who can stick with it and commit.
So how can people maintain that audience? Obviously, it's about good content, but in terms of marketing and promoting what you're offering?
I think it's about knowing what you are uniquely an expert in that no one else. And I think the more niche, the better when it comes to podcasting. If you are like, I am a expert in hockey who loves craft beer, and that's what I'm going to talk about.
Probably a lot of people here in Finland that would love that podcast.
Yes, I mean, I think
ice hockey and beer.
Absolutely, and something like that is actually going to be much more successful than just launching a podcast about just business in general. So I think this is an opportunity to really have a very engaged niche audience, and if you are a brand, suddenly you have kind of all of these influential places to spotlight your product.
Okay, so a lot of that is about spotting your niche. Meanwhile, we've also got this trend for AI, which is kind of doing a lot of the work for us these days. How do you see AI playing a role in marketing moving forward?
I mean, I both love AI and I'm a bit scared of it at the same time.
Me too.
I recently spoke at a conference about AI chatbots, which was very interesting, about how chatbots can now be used for customer service, can be used for giving advice. As part of my research, I tried one out that gives parenting advice. So I was talking to about how my sons were having a lot of sibling rivalry, and did the chatbot have any recommendations? And it was almost like talking to a real person. It was so good. On the other hand, I do start to worry about what happens whenever someone is writing an algorithm for the AI. There's a bias that's in there. It's never perfectly unbiased. And I do worry a little bit about what happens when that's left unchecked.
And what about in terms of our own human-to-human connections? There are some that worry that it's going to be a little bit diluted, or we're going to gear towards interacting with virtual assistants, all different kinds of virtual reality, instead of being more present with our peers and families.
I mean, that's a good point. And I think, right now, AI is not advanced enough that it replaces that human-to-human interaction, but it will be. It will get there. And so that's why I think, in my talk, I was really encouraging people to ask those difficult ethical questions now around how technology can help us, but how it might cause us to be more isolated in the future. But I think AI is one of those interesting ones where I think 30 years down the road, it's going to improve our lives in so many ways. I look forward to a road where it's all robot cars.
Oh, me too.
Right?
I always talk about this. I hate driving and I love discussions about autonomous cars, but the discussion around them has shifted. I think 2-3 years ago it was a lot of hope, and now people are saying maybe they're not coming as quickly as we think. We've got to get over these stumbling blocks, literally, before we get to that point.
You're correct. And so that's why I look forward to 30 years down the road. I do not look forward to that messy years in the middle when there's humans and robots on the road and there's chaos and we haven't kind of retrained everyone yet.
Yeah, okay. Asia has been another key topic over the past couple of days at Nordic Business Forum. And in terms of social media, that brings things like TikTok and other emerging social platforms there. What are your insights into what's happening in Asia? What are you excited about and keeping an eye on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very exciting. I've definitely started to keep an eye on TikTok a lot. I'm not personally on it. I think you do hit a moment in your life where you have to realize you're too old for certain things. But I do keep my eye on it quite a bit. And I think it's amazing. Whenever you have a market where you have billions of people, you're going to have just incredible innovation that you have to pay attention to. So I think e-commerce coming out of Asia is something that's very exciting that we should be thinking about, how they're looking at e-commerce, how they're looking at logistics around delivery, and especially in huge global markets.
Can you give some more detail on that? Do you mean drones and things like that?
I mean, yes, between drones, I look at companies like Flipkart in India that are delivering across both massive cities and rural areas at the same time, and how they solve some of those challenges through technology and logistics. But drones are certainly, I mean, that's very exciting. But also scary. There's a lot of technology that I feel both excited and terrified about at the same time.
Yeah, it's refreshing to have that perspective, both sides of the coin from that perspective. But it does sound like there's a lot that we can learn here in Europe and in the States from what's going on in Asia.
Absolutely. I think blockchain and crypto is another big thing that we can start to learn a lot about from what's happening in Asia.
How mainstream do you think cryptocurrencies will be?
I'm not even sure that it's cryptocurrency that is going to be the thing that wins out. I think it's some of the underlying blockchain technology that is going to protect copyright of artists, that is going to protect property right values in countries where governments are shifting and it's unclear who owns what. I think these are the kind of things that we'll see. So it took kind of a craze around cryptocurrency to get people thinking about blockchain, but there's so many other use cases.
And what about you personally? You have authored several books in recent years, including Pick 3, which is about different strategies for balancing your life. What is next for you personally, and how do you choose where you put your focus right now?
It's very well. You mentioned my book, Pick 3, and I have a philosophy around work-life balance, which is that we shouldn't try to have work-life balance. We should try to be work-life lopsided, and that depending on the phase you're in your life, it's okay if you don't have perfect balance, as long as you make sure that eventually you're going to be lopsided in the other direction, and it balances out in the long run. So I've been thinking a lot about that. I do a lot of investing. I have my own venture fund now that invests in female-founded startups around the world. And then ever since I got back into theater and reconnected with my love around theater, I've now combined my love of theater and entrepreneurial skills, and I produce theatrical shows around the world now. So I have 4 shows that are running on Broadway and several others that we're exploring around the world.
Oh, it must be wonderful to go back to that passion that you've had for so long.
Yes.
But there are a lot of female entrepreneurs, want to be female entrepreneurs here in the audience. You say you invest in people from around the world. So what are you looking for in a pitch and in a product?
Well, people think I'm looking for a good pitch, but really I'm looking for the person.
Okay.
Because companies change, they pivot. I guarantee that whatever you are pitching when you're raising money is not going to be what your company actually ends up doing as you're building it and you're changing. So I look for an entrepreneur that has the grit and the perspective to be able to last for 10 years over markets that are challenging, that really throw a lot of curveballs in their direction, that they can weather that storm.
Yeah, we were talking earlier with Carla Harris about how sometimes the founders of an idea or a product don't necessarily make the best leaders, the best CEOs in future. What do you think are the crucial traits to be one of those founders that remains at the helm?
I think you have to be able to check your ego at the door a bit and understand when you need other people or other partners around you to push an idea. I see so many entrepreneurs who can't get out of their own way, and they end up having a very small exit or an unsuccessful business. For me, I would always rather own a smaller percent of something that goes on to change the world than to own 100% of nothing. And so I really look for an entrepreneur that's going to be able to have that perspective. And I think you need to make sure that you can surround yourself with the right people. A good entrepreneur knows where their gaps in their skill sets are and can hire and trust smart people around them.
So having the right team as as the right idea.
For sure.
And how would you describe yourself as a leader then? What would you say your best and worst qualities are when leading teams?
I think my best and worst qualities, it's the same thing. Because I'm on the road a lot, I'm traveling, I love connecting and meeting people. It means that the people who work for me need to really be self-starters, because I'm not there to be kind of checking up on work or micromanaging or looking at things. And so I think that could be both the best and the worst thing. If you're the kind of person that needs a boss that creates boundaries and works closely with you, that's not the kind of person who's going to thrive working with me. But if you can act like an entrepreneur inside another company, that's someone who's going to be very successful.
Yeah. And in terms of your own personal development, you talked about a few things, continue with the writing and the passion for the Broadway stuff that you're writing and producing. But how do you make sure that you're staying ahead of the curve and investing in yourself?
I try to just be reading and listening to podcasts whenever I can and reading books. I don't think there's a single day that goes by that I'm not learning something new or reading someone else's content. I also think for me, I'm kind of starting to be at an age and a moment where I'm happy to put the spotlight on the next generation of entrepreneurs and be an investor and a mentor instead of always doing everything myself. And that's been something, a real shift in my own personal development.
Yeah, well, we're certainly glad that you're here and giving back and
you.
sharing your insights with the Nordic Business Forum community. Any quick insights from your time in Helsinki? I don't know how much time you've had to be in the Nordics.
I love it here. First of all, I'm a brand new mom. Again, I have a 3-month-old daughter. And so I've been learning a lot about what work-life balance looks like and policies for working moms. It's a lot nicer and friendlier here than back in the United States. So there's definitely a lot that I'm going to learn. And I've had some delicious food while I'm here, but I've also learned that Finland is the most honest country in the world, and that is a lovely thing that I'm going to bring back.
A lot of honesty and a lot of trust, and nice to see you've been learning about this region, as you say, continuously learning. Thank you very much for joining us, Randi Zuckerberg.
Yay, thank you.
Wonderful. That was a great interview.
Thank you so much.
We will pave the way for our next speaker now. So if you wouldn't mind nipping down from the table, and I will just share a little bit more information with the audience and the live stream viewers. Hi again to you guys. Great to have you with us. We're going to be switching direction a little bit and talking about the future of work. So this is a topic that really affects all of us, so definitely worth sticking around for. And we're going to be joined by Mikko Kuitunen, who is the founder and CEO of software company Vincent. So he's just getting mic'd up. And then after him, we're going to be speaking to Anssi Rantanen. He is the winner of the 2019 speaker contest here at Nordic Business Forum. If you missed him on stage, then definitely don't miss this. Some really interesting thoughts on growth, entrepreneurship, teams. So we're going to be hearing a little bit from him as well. So that marks the last of the 3 speakers for this session. But then I'll be back with 2 more speakers wrapping up the day, including a special interview with Brené Brown after she has come off the main stage. So do stick around for that. So welcome, Mikko Kuitunen, jumping up to the table. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I gave you a brief introduction, founder and CEO of software company Vincent, but also very passionate about the future of work. So we're going to be kind of focusing a little bit on that. And to start with, your company has been voted a number of times as one of the best places in the world to work. So actually the best in Finland and the best in Europe in 2016 in the Best Place to Work Institute's rankings, recently named by Inc. magazine, a huge US business magazine, as one of the best workplaces for 2019. So congratulations.
Thank you.
What are the factors that you've been praised for?
I think that the main key is about the humanized culture and leadership we are practicing. So treating people as individuals and truly respect them, and trying to figure out that which is blocking them to be successful, and then eliminating those obstacles. I think that that's the main thing. So focusing on the people and creating that kind of environment that everybody can be themselves.
Okay, so human connections.
Yes.
I don't know if your microphone's a teeny bit quiet. I know it's very busy in here, so if you wouldn't mind just speaking up a tiny bit so that everyone gets to hear your nuggets of wisdom. So one of your other core points that you've talked about before is about how you need to put employee satisfaction and customer satisfaction ahead of growth in business, which is, in some ways a controversial way round of doing things. What is the data, what is the evidence that suggests it's worth it?
So if you think about growth, I think that that's a really lousy target, because it's more like a consequence of doing the right thing. So I guess that easily it's say that you can reach infinite growth numbers if you are selling $1 bills by 80 cents or something. So especially growth of turnover, it's not telling anything. So I think that the key is to find that which elements which are in your context, in your company, brings the possibility to growth, and then focus on them and try to be as good as possible on those elements. So I think that for us, it's the infinite game, is that if we are successful in making our customers and making our employees to be more satisfied tomorrow than they were today, and if we are successful in that, then the future will be bright also in what comes to turnover.
Okay. Earlier today, we heard from the Bright Line Initiative about how companies can come back from scandals and crisis. And your company, although it's had a lot of praise, it also received a bit of backlash earlier this year. It was due to a recruitment campaign for bringing people on for the company. And you were accused of searching for an ideal that resembled you as somebody to replace you. And so a lot of people interpreted this as, oh, he's looking for another white male. How did things feel for you at the heart of that crisis, and how did you come back from it?
Yeah, I think that the key learning was that it's not too easy to make that kind of a really good conversation in social media. Even though like at least sometimes I have a kind of strong opinions, but I really I like to have a discussions with people with good arguments, and I'm happy to share mine. But it seems to be a bit difficult, as in Twitter everybody is seeing the world like black and white.
Yeah,
but
people are a lot more open about criticizing people and saying things on social media that they wouldn't necessarily say face to face. I've experienced that as well.
Yeah,
as
exactly.
a journalist.
But I think that the main thing was that, of course, it made us think that, okay, do we have some skeletons in our closet? So we deep dive to the topic, and then we studied ourselves and found out that, okay, at least the background should be fine, and that helped, like going through from the lots of like media stuff which was going on at that time.
How did you communicate to your employees during this crisis time?
Yeah, at least I try to be as honest as possible, and also being as open and fast in communication and possible, and as usual that you don't reach all the people using one message and using one channel. So utilizing multi-channels and different type of messages. Some went to deep dive to something, somewhere at the upper level. So that's I guess the only way to reach the critical mass.
What do you think are the key elements to creating a strong company culture?
Yeah, I think that the culture is really context dependent. So there's no single formula of being a great culture. At least I don't think so. I think that it's really dependent of the story, of the history of the company, and the way they are standing, the size and the location. I think that great culture is something that is really well suiting to that one on each company. But I guess that the main, like these kind of common elements are trust. It's the lot, I think, which has also been really widely discussed here in the keynotes, that if the people can feel they can be themselves when they come to job. So
authenticity. It just keeps coming up.
Yeah, so that's really something that comes up. So not like need to put any effort of hiding something. I think that's something, and then focusing on the individuals. So try to find ways that they can be successful, whatever they are doing in the organization. That doesn't matter at what level you are working or what are the tasks. So I guess that those are the things that we have been interested.
Apart from Vincit, do you have any specific examples of places that you think have really nailed it?
I think that like companies like Bootzorg or Chapos or Patagonia, Semco from Brazil, I think that at least to name a few, I'm sure that there's like thousands of other companies who really have a great culture. They have like seen that, okay, this works for us. And I think that there's also culture is something which is really changing over the time. So it's not a fixed thing.
Yeah, so adapting. But could you pick out one of those companies and tell us specifically why? Take Patagonia, for instance.
Yeah, okay. I would say that like I just met on Tuesday one of the guys from the supervision board of Bootzorg. So that's a pretty fresh discussion we had. So that's like, I guess that from all the companies I have get known to, maybe the most purposeful company. It's a Dutch company operating at the nursing and this kind of home care business, employing 1,500 people. No, so 15,000. Yeah, 15,000. Yeah, so it's a big company, and it's really agile and self-driven. And the only thing they are interested in that if they have been able to help the people, their customers. So that's the only measurement they have for the teams, and the teams are responsible of truly owning the customers and making the best for them. So I think that that's really something that it's not commonly seen in that business of healthcare and this kind of a public-private interface of healthcare.
Yeah. We said we would talk about the future of work. Are there any specific trends that you're keeping an eye on or excited about?
Yeah, I think that AI is something that everybody is looking at. But I think that in our context, we have been talking quite a lot, and I have been like personally really into this kind of a sustainable digitalization. So there's lots of transformation going on, and there's digital tools that companies are utilizing in order to go forward. So I guess that somewhere there is still lots of work to be done in order that companies understand that they can use this kind of a sustainable thinking also in a digitalization that helps them, of course, fight for the climate change, but in addition to be relevant to their customers also in the future.
Okay, so sustainability, keeping an eye on digital transformation, figuring out the best ways in which to do that. What about remote working, which kind of comes hand in hand with digitalization, which enables remote working? But how can we keep some of the things that you talked about in terms of employee satisfaction if employees are not together in the same physical workspace?
I don't know if there's like again for somebody, for some tasks it's the best place to do it. It's at home. It's somewhere in the forest or in coffee shop, and some tasks and some people enjoy that they are done at the office. I think that the thing that companies should do is that really consider that what is the best way of working, the best methods in order to achieve the most value in the long run, and then make it possible. So I don't believe that it should be all the day at remote and all the days at the office. So it's more like fluctuating. Of course, comes some responsibility as there's the freedom, but I think that that's still like the misuse of that freedom it's not that big that it would be like we would need some kind of legislation or something to make the common rules.
Maybe not here. I mean, Finland and the Nordics, there's a real culture of trust, but I think one of the reasons people are a bit more hesitant about introducing it in other countries is because there is this fear that you might just stay at home and do your washing or watch a video instead of actually working.
Yeah, and that I think that we will, especially at this kind of a top talent and at least a bit creative business lines, I think that we go more to this kind of impact-based reviews in the scorecard. So it's that what you have been able to create, or what you have been able to bring. So I think that will goes that will this kind of strengthen trend, and not like measuring just the hours. Of course, we need to like keep eye on them, because in the long run we want people to be able to work and be happy and enjoy the life also. So that's something that I guess that will be.
But make sure that they are making an impact, and it's
exactly.
measurable what they're doing, even if it's not necessarily something you can see because they're not there, and it's not necessarily whether it takes one person 2 or 3 hours. Really interesting input. I wish we could talk for longer about the future of work. It's one of my favourite topics, but we do need to move on to our final speaker. So let's give it up for Mikko Kuitunen from Vincit.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, as I mentioned, one more guest to go for this live studio session on the Viaplay stage. He's warming us up for George Clooney, who's going to be coming onto the main stage. That's happening very soon, in about 15 minutes from now. So, good claim to fame for our next guest to be warming up for him. He's the winner of this year's Speakers Contest at Nordic Business Forum. He was on the main stage yesterday. His topic there was the that experimentation is the future of growth. So welcome. Come up to the table. Anssi Rantanen from Finland, but working for the Dutch business education company Growth Tribe. For anyone that missed you on the main stage, give us your top takeaways from the talk.
Sure. Maddie, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm sure you've had a long day doing all these interviews, so I'll bring a bit of color maybe to this 15 minutes. So I think a lot of corporates are doing some kind of a digital agile transformation where they want to be more fast-paced, they want to be more experiment-driven, but there's a fundamental building block missing in a lot of their strategies, which is the environment that the teams work in. So Google, for example, did a multi-year research trying to understand what makes their most successful teams so successful. And the strongest predictor was something called psychological safety. And psychological safety is defined as the ability to take risks and be vulnerable in front of your colleagues. And the teams are successful because that means that they're trying a lot of things out and getting a lot of successes via that.
And this psychological safety was a really big hashtag yesterday. Actually, a lot of people did pick up on those discussions. How did it feel as a winner of the speakers contest to see the impact, really?
I mean, it was a phenomenal opportunity to begin with to get 17 minutes in front of 7,500 business leaders. So I was really grateful for that. But I think the most, it really touched me on a personal, emotional level when I had people come up to me after my talk saying that, they've decided to take action after hearing me speak, or they've decided to make this and this change. So I think it's
already.
Always...
It had an instant impact.
Yeah, so it's humbling. It's really humbling. And also maybe gives me a bit of affirmation or confirmation that I'm talking about important themes.
Yeah, you won the competition. You should definitely know that. For people that don't know much about how the process works, let's talk about how you got there in case anyone else is interested in applying for next year. So how does it work?
It is something that I highly recommend for anybody that's even remotely interested, because it is a phenomenal launch pad for any future want to be a speaker. So when I did it, it was extremely simple. The barrier to apply was very low. So I started the first round, which is sending in a 3-minute video of me talking about what I want to talk about. So very straightforward. After that, there was the first round of qualifiers. I think at that point, they narrowed it down to 24 speakers. And from there, they invited 6 speakers to the finals. And then from the finals, obviously, one winner. So that was the process, and it was straightforward and very enjoyable.
What made you want to be a speaker?
It's something that I've been passionate about all my life, as long as I can remember. I've enjoyed speaking. I've taken every single opportunity to speak publicly when they've arisen. So it's just something that I've perhaps innately, that's something that just my curiosity and my interest has guided me towards. So it's just this innate curiosity, I think.
And what do you think the Nordic Business Forum team are looking for? What do you think makes a winning speaker?
I think I did a lot of research looking at what makes a fantastic speech a fantastic speech. So I'm a bit of a nerd in the regard that I always want to research as much as possible, because there are always clues and there's always formulas. Can you
share a couple of those with us?
So I think Talk Like TED was pretty good. And then there's a lot of books around behavioral psychology, Robert Cialdini's 6 Principles of Influence, the classic by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Those are a few that I'd pick out, because at the end of the day, it's just human psychology. Influencing, being on stage is human psychology. People love surprises. People love vulnerability. People love true stories. So piecing those elements together, I think what the NBF always looks for is definitely originality, but also a message that is in line with what they think that the NBF audience wants to hear. So something which is actually relevant at this moment.
Okay, some really great tips. Hopefully that will inspire some people to think about putting their names in the hat for next time around.
I do recommend it.
Let's talk about a few other issues that you're interested in. Marketing. What do you think is next for the marketing industry in 2020?
I think experimentation. It's as simple as that. So the best companies that do marketing, they're running hundreds, if not thousands of experiments every single year. So of course there's technological change and there's a lot of mega trends with technology, but at the end of the day, technology is just a tool, like a hammer is, right? So the best way to capture the benefits of technology is to be really fast-paced and agile and do a lot of experiments. So I think that's what I'd highlight as the number one big thing that will transform marketing in the future.
We were talking to Randi Zuckerberg about this as well, and she was saying she's kind of equally scared and equally excited when it comes to AI.
Yeah.
What would be your reflections on that?
I rarely take any stances because there are people way smarter than me thinking about these things. Ultimately, though, I think, as back to my previous point, I think technology is always a tool. A hammer, you can use that to build a house, but you can also use it to bash someone's head, right? The hammer itself isn't good or bad, and that's the way I view technology. Based on what I followed the discussion, my personal opinion is that, AI technologies can always be used for good or bad. So I think it's really up to governance and institutions to align the incentives to make sure that the payoff for using them well is higher than the payoff for using them in a malicious manner.
Yeah. And what about Growth Tribe,
Sure.
the organization that you're part of? Where are you guys going? What can we see and expect from you in the coming year or so?
So right now we are in 8 countries. Probably in the coming year or so, we're going to expand to a lot more. What we do is we help companies plug the digital skills gap. So companies that need a new way of doing things, be it more experiment driven, or need to engage with new technologies, will be the education, the coaching partner in that. So there's a big gap also in the market for high quality education. So I think we're expanding very rapidly across Europe in the next 1 or 2 years, and also partnering up probably with more big companies and help them bridge that digital skills gap.
Okay, so lots of interesting developments and growing internationally. That's really interesting to hear. Finally, really, we've been asking a lot of our guests about their reflections on Nordic Business Forum, but I want to ask you maybe some top tips, really, as an attendee, maybe for people watching on the live stream, thinking, oh, this looks good, I'd like to come next year. But it is a big event, so how do you navigate it and make the most of it, aside from being a keynote speaker? You've been here as a guest before as well, haven't you?
I have. I think the Brella meetings were a fantastic way.
Explain what those are to people that haven't been.
Yeah, so there's an app here, a matchmaking app, and you can set up meetings with other attendees of the event. Last year, my calendar was quite full with meetings, and I had plenty of really interesting ones. So I think it's, for me, the sort of relationships that I got out of last year's meetings, they're gonna finance, all of the future sort of NBFs. So the upside, the meetings are incredibly valuable. That's what I'm trying to say. So I've gotten always a lot of value out of the NBF meetings, and for me, that's really one of the greatest things about this event. The people that go, and there's a lot of interesting conversations to be had.
Yeah, and what do you think it means for Helsinki to host something like this?
I think it's phenomenal. I've had plenty of people from the US, from Asia, come and say hi. So I think NBF and Slush and all of these things, they're great for, making Helsinki more international. Yeah,
keeping the spotlight on the startup scene in this part of the World.
Exactly.
Okay, we'll wrap it up there, but it's been great to talk to you. Anssi Rantanen, that is one of the winner of the Nordic Business Forum Speakers Contest. So let's give him a huge round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us here at the Viaplay live studio stream. Okay, so George Clooney coming up next on the main stage, but I will be back here a little bit later on with 2 more final guests. I'll be discussing leadership with Houston University Professor Brené Brown. She's already appeared in a VIP session to guests, and she's going to be appearing again once more on the main stage before we get a chance to speak to her. And then we'll also be wrapping up the day with Alf Ren, Ren. He's a professor of innovation, design and management at the University of Southern Denmark, to get a bit more of an academic perspective on this kind of event and some of the main key themes that have come out of it, to let us know how we can really digest and break those things down. So do stick around for all of those things. That'll be starting off here at the main stage at 10 to 6 Helsinki time. And once again, we really do want you guys to share your experiences of what's been going on as well on the hashtag NB Forum 2019. So share your pictures, share your memories, share your favorite quotes. It's been fantastic reading through all of those so far. So we'll see you very shortly. For now, though, for those of you watching on the main stage, do enjoy George Clooney. Bye-bye for now.